The spring sunshine was pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sterling Imperial Motors on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. It was April 23rd, 1964, and the showroom gleamed with chrome and possibility. Rows of luxury automobiles sat like jewels on display. Cadillacs, Lincolns, Imperials. These weren't just cars. They were statements. They were symbols of success, wealth, and status in a city that measured worth by what you drove. Jeanne Martin walked through the glass doors at precisely 2 p.m. She was elegant in a way that seemed effortless. A tailored cream suit, pearls at her throat, her dark hair styled perfectly. She was beautiful, poised, the kind of woman who turned heads not because she tried to, but because she couldn't help it. Jeanne was Dean Martin's wife, though she never introduced herself that way. She'd grown up as Dorothy Jean Biegger in Coral Gables, Florida, and she'd worked as a model before meeting Dean. She had her own identity, her own grace, her own sense of self that had nothing to do with being married to one of the biggest stars in entertainment. Today, she was shopping for a car. Her current Cadillac was fine, but she wanted something new, something exciting. Dean had told her to pick whatever she wanted, given her his blessing to spend whatever it took to get exactly what she desired. He'd offered to come with her, but Jeanne had declined. She was perfectly capable of buying a car on her own. She'd handled her own finances, made her own decisions. Being Dean Martin's wife didn't mean she needed him to hold her hand through every transaction. She should have let him come. The humiliation begins. Robert Sterling was a floor manager at Sterling Imperial Motors, and he noticed Jeanne the moment she walked in. He was in his mid-40s, slick-haired, with a mustache he thought made him look sophisticated. He'd been selling luxury cars to the wealthy elite of Beverly Hills for 15 years, and he prided himself on being able to assess a customer within seconds of meeting them, who had money, who was serious, who was worth his time. He looked at Jeanne Martin and made his assessment. Beautiful woman, well-dressed, alone, no husband in sight. She was probably a secretary from one of the studios, maybe an aspiring actress. She'd come in to look at cars she couldn't afford, to take brochures home, to dream, or maybe she was someone's mistress, sent to look at cars while her wealthy boyfriend was busy with his actual wife. Either way, she was a serious buyer. Sterling walked over with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good afternoon, miss. Can I help you find someone?" "I'm here to look at cars," Jeanne said pleasantly. "I'm interested in seeing your Imperials." "The Imperials?" Sterling repeated, his smile widening slightly. "Those are very expensive vehicles." "Very expensive. Are you shopping for someone? Your employer, perhaps?" Jeanne's smile didn't falter, but something flickered in her eyes. "I'm shopping for myself." "I see," Sterling said, his tone making it clear he didn't see it all. "Well, the Imperials start around $6,000. That's quite a significant investment. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable looking at our Dodge section. They have some very affordable models that might be more suitable for your budget." "I didn't ask about the price," Jeanne said, her voice still calm. "I asked to see the Imperials." Sterling's smile became more patronizing. "Miss, I appreciate your interest, but I'd hate for you to waste your time. These cars require a substantial down payment, and the monthly payments are quite steep. Unless you have someone who'll be co-signing with you, your husband or your father, it might be difficult to qualify for financing." "I won't need financing," Jeanne said. "I'll be paying in full." Sterling laughed. Actually laughed. "In full? Miss, that's over $6,000 cash. I don't mean to be rude, but you don't look like someone who has that kind of money just sitting around." Jeanne took a breath. She'd dealt with condescension before. Being a woman in 1964 meant dealing with men who assumed you were either too stupid or too poor to make your own decisions. But this was different. This felt more pointed, more personal. "I'd like to speak to your manager," she said quietly. "I am the floor manager," Sterling replied. "But if you insist, I can get the general manager. Though I should warn you, Clayton Hayes is much less patient than I am with people who waste our time." The situation deteriorates. Clayton Hayes was 55 years old, heavy-set, with a kind of face that looked like it had been carved from granite by someone who didn't particularly like faces. He'd built Sterling Imperial Motors from nothing, and he ran it with an iron fist. He sold cars to movie stars, producers, oil barons, real estate moguls. His dealership was for serious people with serious money. Sterling had pulled Hayes aside and given him the situation. Woman alone wants to look at Imperials, claims she can pay cash. Probably delusional or running some kind of scam. I figured you want to handle it before she causes a scene. Hayes walked over to where Jeanne was standing, looking at a beautiful midnight blue Imperial crown. Miss, I'm Clayton Hayes, the owner of this dealership. I understand there's some confusion. There's no confusion, Jeanne said. I'd like to purchase a car. Your floor manager seems unwilling to help me. Hayes looked her up and down in a way that made Jeanne's skin crawl. Let me be frank with you, miss. This dealership caters to a very specific clientele. People with substantial means. Now, I'm sure you're a lovely young woman, but luxury car dealerships aren't playgrounds. We don't have time to show cars to every person who walks in off the street with champagne taste and a beer budget. You don't know anything about my budget, Jeanne said, her voice harder now. I know enough, Hayes said. I know that women your age don't typically have $6,000 to spend on a car unless someone's giving it to them. So if you have a gentleman friend who's interested in making a purchase, have him come in and we'll be happy to assist him. But I don't conduct business with intermediaries or girlfriends or whatever you are. The showroom had gone quiet. Other customers were watching now. A couple looking at a Cadillac. A young man examining a Lincoln. A salesman who'd been writing up paperwork. Everyone could hear what was happening. And everyone was watching Jeanne Martin being humiliated. I'm not anyone's girlfriend, Jeanne said, her voice tight. I'm a married woman shopping for a car with my own money, and I don't appreciate being treated like I'm some kind of con artist. Your own money? Hayes repeated mockingly. Tell me something. What exactly do you do for a living that gives you $6,000 in disposable income? Are you an actress? A model? Or do you have one of those arrangements where a wealthy man takes care of you and your husband looks the other way? Jeanne's face went pale. The insult was so blatant, so cruel, that for a moment she couldn't speak. This wasn't just sexism. This was something uglier, something that questioned her character, her marriage, her integrity. I think you should leave, Hayes said, not waiting for her answer. You're clearly not a serious buyer, and you're taking up time I could be spending with actual customers. I am a serious buyer, Jeanne said, but her voice wavered now. The humiliation was getting to her. All these people watching. All these assumptions about who she was and what she was worth. Sterling, please escort this woman out, Hayes said, turning away dismissively. And in the future, don't waste my time with every attractive woman who walks in here thinking she can use her looks to get a test drive. That's when Dean Martin walked through the door. Dean's unexpected arrival. Dean hadn't planned to come to the dealership. He'd been in meetings all morning at NBC discussing his upcoming variety show, and he'd finished early. He'd thought about surprising Jeanne, maybe taking her to lunch after she finished looking at cars. He'd told her to meet him at 3 p.m. at Chasen's, but he decided to arrive at the dealership at 2:45 p.m. instead, to see what she'd chosen, to be part of her excitement. He walked through the glass doors of Sterling Imperial Motors with his characteristic casual elegance. Suit perfectly tailored, his presence filling the room without him trying. Dean had that quality. He could walk into any space and immediately become the center of gravity without doing anything except being himself. He saw Jeanne immediately. Saw her standing near a midnight blue Imperial, her face flushed. Saw two men, one heavy-set and aggressive-looking, one slick and smug. Saw the other customers watching with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. He knew that posture of Jeanne's. The way she was holding herself very still, very carefully. The way she did when she was fighting not to cry, not to show hurt, not to give someone the satisfaction of seeing they'd gotten to her. Dean walked closer, but not directly toward them. He moved aside, positioning himself where he could hear what was being said without being immediately noticed. He wanted to understand what was happening before he intervened. I'm not leaving, Jeanne was saying, her voice controlled but strained. I came here to purchase a car, and I have every right to be here. You have the right to be here when you're a paying customer, Hayes said, but you're not. You're a woman who walked in off the street, making claims she can't back up. Now, I've asked you politely to leave. Don't make me call security. Dean felt something cold settle in his chest. It was the same feeling he'd had that night at the Sands when Vic Duca had sprayed Sammy with champagne. It was anger, but controlled anger. The kind that didn't explode, but instead burned cold and focused. He stepped forward. Is there a problem here? All three of them turned. Hayes and Sterling looked at him with mild irritation. Two men annoyed at another interruption. Then recognition dawned on Hayes' face. His expression shifted from irritation to something else. Not quite fear, but uncertainty. Mr. Martin, Hayes said, his tone changing entirely. What a pleasure. Are you here to look at vehicles? We'd be honored to show you our inventory. I'm here, Dean said calmly, because that's my wife you just threatened to have removed by security. The color drained from Hayes' face. Sterling actually took a step backward. Jeanne closed her eyes briefly, something between relief and residual humiliation washing over her. Your wife? Hayes said weakly. My wife, Dean confirmed. Jeanne Martin, who came here to buy a car with cash, who has more than enough money to purchase any vehicle in this showroom, who you just called. And correct me if I'm wrong about this, someone who uses her looks to get test drives and possibly someone's mistress. The confrontation. The showroom was absolutely silent now. Every customer, every salesman, everyone had stopped what they were doing to watch this unfold. Jeanne Martin, one of the biggest stars in entertainment, standing in their dealership, confronting their owner about how he treated his wife. Mr. Martin, I apologize. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Hayes started, his voice placating now. We had no idea she was your wife. She didn't introduce herself, didn't mention your name. Stop, Dean said, his voice quiet but with an edge that cut through Hayes' excuses. Let me explain something to you, Clayton. My wife shouldn't have to introduce herself as my wife to be treated with respect. She shouldn't have to drop my name to be considered a legitimate customer. She walked in here as a woman with money who wanted to buy a car, and that should have been enough. Of course, you're absolutely right, Hayes said quickly. It's just that we get so many people coming in who aren't serious buyers, and we have to be careful about who we spend time with. So you decided to be careful by assuming my wife was a liar, a gold digger, or a mistress? Dean's voice was still calm, still controlled, but there was steel underneath. Those were your careful assumptions? Sterling tried to intervene. Mr. Martin, if I could just explain. You, Dean said, turned to Sterling with a look that made the floor manager shut his mouth immediately. You told my wife she looked like someone who didn't have money sitting around. You suggested she was shopping for her employer. You laughed at her when she said she'd pay cash. Do I have that right? Sterling's face had gone from red to pale. I mean, I was just trying to... You were trying to judge someone based on the fact that she was a woman alone, Dean said. That's what you were trying to do. Because in your world, women don't have their own money. Women don't make their own decisions. Women are either secretaries or mistresses or silly little things who need men to handle their finances. He turned back to Hayes. And you told my wife she had champagne taste and a beer budget. You suggested she had some arrangement where a wealthy man takes care of her while her husband looks the other way. That's what you said to my wife. Clayton, to my wife. Hayes was sweating now despite the air conditioning. Mr. Martin, please, I apologize profusely. It was a terrible error in judgment. We would be honored to sell Mrs. Martin any vehicle she desires. We'll give you our best price, our absolute best. No, Dean said simply. Hayes blinked. No, Dean repeated. You're not selling my wife a car. You're not selling me a car. You're not selling anyone I know a car. Because I'm going to make sure that everyone in Hollywood, everyone in the entertainment industry, everyone with money in the city knows exactly how Sterling Imperial Motors treats women who come in alone. Mr. Martin, please, Hayes said, desperation creeping into his voice now. Don't do this. We can make this right. We can... You can't make this right, Dean interrupted. What you can do is think very carefully about how you treat your customers in the future. Because what happened here wasn't an isolated incident, was it? How many other women have walked through these doors and been treated the same way? How many women have been insulted, dismissed, humiliated because they didn't have a man with them? The masterful reversal. Dean took Jeanne's hand. She'd been standing there silently, watching her husband defend her, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness now, but something else. Relief, gratitude, love. Here's what's going to happen, Dean said, his voice carrying to every corner of the showroom. I'm going to walk out of here with my wife. We're going to go to Beverly Hills Cadillac, where they'll be thrilled to sell Jeanne whatever car she wants. And then I'm going to call every friend I have, every colleague, every person I know with influence, and I'm going to tell them this story. Please, Hay said quietly, this could ruin my business. Your business should be ruined, Dean said flatly. You build it on treating people with respect only if they meet your narrow definition of who deserves respect. But since I'm feeling generous, I'll make you a deal. Hayes looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. You have two choices, Dean continued. First choice, I tell everyone I know what happened here today, and your dealership becomes known as the place that insults women. You'll survive, probably, but you'll lose a lot of business. Or second choice, you fire Robert Sterling immediately. Not next week, not tomorrow. Right now, you escort him out today. And then you implement a new policy where every salesman in this dealership is required to treat every customer, male or female, with the same respect regardless of whether they're alone or with someone, regardless of how they look or how old they are. Fire Sterling? Hayes looked at his floor manager, then back at Dean. Fire him, Dean confirmed, because he's the one who started this. He's the one who looked at my wife and decided she wasn't worth his time. And if you keep him employed, you're telling every woman who walks through these doors his behavior was acceptable. Hayes stood there for a long moment, weighing his options, his business against his floor manager, his reputation against his loyalty to an employee who'd worked for him for years. Sterling, Hayes said finally, not looking at the man. Clean out your desk. You're terminated, effective immediately. Sterling's jaw dropped. Clayton, you can't be serious. After everything I've done for this place. You humiliated Jeanne Martin's wife. Hayes said harshly. What did you think was going to happen? It's not just that he humiliated my wife, Dean said coldly. It's that he humiliates women every day, and you've let him because it didn't matter to you. It only matters now because I'm here. That's the problem, Clayton. That's why your business deserves to suffer. He turned to the other customers in the showroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the scene, but I want you to know what happened here today. This dealership judged my wife based on her gender and decided she wasn't worthy of basic respect. If you're comfortable giving your money to a business that operates that way, that's your choice. But you deserve to know. Dean started walking toward the door, Jean's hand still in his. Then he paused and turned back. One more thing, Clayton. That new policy about treating every customer with respect, I want it in writing. I want it posted on your wall. And I want you to send me a copy. Because I'm going to check in periodically. And if I hear one more woman being treated the way my wife was treated today, I will burn this place to the ground with my words. Are we clear? Hayes nodded mutely. Good, Dean said. Then he and Jeanne walked out of Sterling Imperial Motors into the bright California sunshine. The personal moment. They didn't speak until they were in Dean's car, a silver dual gear that he parked across the street. Dean sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, not starting the engine. Jeanne sat beside him, still crying softly. I'm sorry, she said finally. Dean turned to her, shocked. You're sorry? Jeanne, what could you possibly have to be sorry for? I should have told them who I was, she said. I should have said I was your wife right away. Then none of this would have happened. No, Dean said firmly. No, Jeanne. You shouldn't have to use my name to be treated like a human being. You shouldn't have to explain who you're married to in order to be respected. You're Jeanne Martin. You're brilliant and kind and capable. You have your own money, your own life, your own worth that has nothing to do with me. But if I just mention your name, then they would have treated you well for the wrong reasons, Dean interrupted. They would have been nice to Jeanne Martin's wife, not to Jeanne. And that's not respect, that's fear. That's calculation. I don't want people to be nice to you because they're afraid of me. I want them to be nice to you because you deserve it. Jeanne wiped her eyes. What you did in there, the way you stood up for me, is what any husband should do, Dean said. Hell, it's what any decent person should do. You were being humiliated, Jeanne. I wasn't going to stand there and let that happen. You got a man fired. Jeanne said softly. I got a man fired who deserved to be fired. Dean corrected. How many other women has he treated that way, Jeanne? How many women has he turned away or insulted or made feel small because they didn't meet his standards of who deserves to buy a car? He should have been fired years ago. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jeanne laughed, a small sound that was half sob. What? Dean asked. I actually really like that blue Imperial, she said. The one I was looking at when everything went wrong. Dean smiled. Then let's go get you a blue Imperial. Beverly Hills Cadillac has Imperials too, and I guarantee they'll treat you like royalty. Will you come with me this time? Jeanne asked. If you want me to, Dean said. I do, Jeanne said. Not because I need you there to be taken seriously, but because I want you there. Because buying a car with my husband sounds a lot better than buying one alone. Dean leaned over and kissed her forehead. Then let's go buy you a car. The ripple effects and legacy. The story of what happened at Sterling Imperial Motors spread through Hollywood like wildfire. Dean didn't hide it. He told people. He told Johnny Carson. He told Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. He told producers and directors and fellow actors. He told everyone he met what Clayton Hayes and Robert Sterling had done to Jeanne. Sterling Imperial Motors didn't close, but their business suffered. Movie stars who'd been loyal customers quietly took their business elsewhere. Wives of producers and executives, women who'd been treated similarly but hadn't said anything, suddenly felt empowered to share their own stories. Hayes did implement the policy Dean had demanded, posted it on the wall, sent Dean a copy, but the damage was done. More importantly, other dealerships took notice. Suddenly, luxury car dealerships in Beverly Hills were training their salespeople to treat women with respect, not because they'd suddenly become enlightened, but because they'd seen what happened when you didn't. They'd seen Jeanne Martin destroy Sterling Imperial Motors' reputation with nothing but words and truth. Women started coming into dealerships alone more often, started asserting themselves, started demanding to be taken seriously. And salesmen, remembering the story of Jeanne Martin and what her husband had done, thought twice before dismissing them. Jeanne did buy her Imperial that day from Beverly Hills Cadillac, midnight blue with white leather interior. The salesman there treated her with impeccable respect, though Dean suspected the story had already reached them by the time they arrived. She drove that car for 5 years and loved every mile. But the real legacy wasn't the car. It was what Dean had said in that showroom. That women shouldn't have to drop a famous name to be respected. That dignity wasn't something you earned by association, but something you possessed by being human. That how you treated people when you thought they had no power revealed who you really were. Years later, when Dean and Jeanne's marriage ended in divorce, they remained friends. And Jeanne would tell people that one of the moments she loved Dean most wasn't during their happiest times, but on that April afternoon in 1964, when he walked into a car dealership and fought for her dignity. He didn't have to do that, she'd say. He could have just bought me the car somewhere else and moved on. But Dean understood that it wasn't about the car. It was about the principle. It was about standing up and saying that treating women like that isn't acceptable. And he did it not because I was his wife, but because it was right. That's the story of Jeanne Martin's wife being humiliated at a luxury car dealership. It's not just about one incident or one confrontation. It's about a man who understood that respect isn't conditional, that dignity matters, that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand up for someone who's being treated unfairly, even if it costs you nothing except time and words. Clayton Hayes learned that lesson the hard way. Robert Sterling learned it when he lost his job. And everyone who heard the story learned that Jeanne Martin wasn't just a talented entertainer with easy charm and a smooth voice. He was a man who believed in defending the people he loved, who believed that women deserved respect regardless of whose wife they were. who believed that using your influence to fight injustice wasn't optional. It was mandatory. April 23rd, 1964, the day Jeanne Martin walked into a car dealership alone and was humiliated. The day Jeanne Martin walked in and changed how that dealership and many others treated women forever. The day one man's courage reminded everyone that dignity isn't negotiable and respect should never be conditional. That's a story worth remembering.